Hello, everyone, and welcome to ZinoNation Lucky Episode 13. This is an AnafiNation episode tonight, and we have our special guest, Ethan Mitchell, all the way from Maryland, right?
Yeah, Baltimore.
Baltimore, Maryland, on the East Coast. And also, I'm joined by my regular co-host, Marcus Crawford from the great state of Idaho. We're going to get this show on the road here. Marcus, you have any thoughts? Well, I know Marcus has something big to talk about here, but I'm going to let Ethan introduce himself to everybody because he's never been in the show before. And then we're going to go to Marcus, and he's going to give a little bit of breaking news. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay, Ethan. Introduce yourself to the audience a little bit. Just say a little bit about yourself and what you like to fly and anything you want.
Sure. Hey, guys. Well, my name is Ethan Mitchell. I'm actually live over in Baltimore, Maryland. I want to thank Ron and Marcus for having me on tonight. It's great to be here. But I started flying drones probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I currently fly the Anafi the most and the Mavic 2 Pro. Both of them are great drones. I like doing a lot of videos on those, but my channel, I really like to compare the image quality of different drones and really do tutorials of how to use all the different features and where those features can be used. In the future, I think we're trying to get a website started where we can upload the raw footage from different drones. So that people, if you're curious about getting a drone, you can see what the image quality is going to be like and what to expect. And if you're using a particular video editor, you can put that footage in your editor and see what kind of footage you can expect out of your setup. So I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to have when I first started looking into getting drones. And I think we're going to do some live streams in the future about color grading and just basic Q&A.
Thank you, Ethan. And if anybody already doesn't follow Ethan on YouTube, his YouTube channel is in the show notes. And I've even created an Anafi playlist in the group, and I threw his 2 most recent videos in on the Anafi. And Ethan, do you have any other social media sites you would like to plug here?
I'm on Facebook. You can look me on Facebook. It's just Ethan Mitchell. And then I'm also on Instagram. It's Ethan_Mitchell_51. But I really am not that active in either one of those. I'm probably more active in Instagram than I am Facebook. I am the most active on YouTube, and that's the easiest way to get a hold of me is to comment on one of the videos.
Okay, good. Thank you. And that sounds like a great idea, that a site where people can download, you said the raw footage from different drones and put them in their editor, because again, I'm no editing expert, but I know, certain video doesn't hold up as well when you start stretching these editors. So, that is an important thing to do. And we talked off air before we got on that he'd like to see what the Zino video looks like in one of his editing programs. So I'm going to send him some Zino videos so he can see how well it holds up under his editing process. But we have a little bit of breaking news here today. And I'm not going to be in keys of their growth. Marcus Crawford, he's got kind of almost a public service warning coming here. So everybody get your notepads out and get ready.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say how much I appreciate Ethan coming on the show tonight. So if you look at YouTube channels, drone channels, Ethan actually knows what he's doing, and his content is very detailed and very helpful. And if you fly an Anafi, I can't imagine why you wouldn't be looking at his channel regularly. Into what Ron was referring to is today I took our favorite drone, the Hudson Zino, out. And, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the new FPV firmware upgrade for the Zino. That is to say that it degraded the quality of the video, 3.66 versus 3.8, which is the new one. Now, like everybody else, I said, oh, well, shoot, I'm not going to upgrade. I like the video content as it is. I thought they improved that camera quite a bit and was pretty happy with it. But then I thought, part of my channel, I'm always the guy that upgrades to the latest firmware and then goes out and shows everybody what it does. So I decided to do that today with the Hubsan Zino, and I took the Zino up first with the old firmware. I bought my little micro SD card with me with the new FPV firmware, and I did a flight with it with the version 3.6, and then landed it, loaded the new firmware, and flew the same route on it with the new version. And wow, I acknowledge that I do not have. I was just telling Ethan and Ron that I don't have the most discerning eye when it comes to video. I'm looking at a video, and if somebody's explaining to me the detail here or there, I can look at it and tell the difference. But often I'm looking at a video and I go, wow, that looks good. Or hey, let me tell you, I instantly could tell the difference. And 3.8, it was a definite degradation in the video quality of the Hubsan Zino. And I can pull it up here real quick and show you guys some examples. It'll take me just a second here to get the screen shared. So we're sharing the screen, and just give me a second here to get I can only pull up one video at a time. So here it is. This is with the original firmware, and I am going to. Are you guys seeing this on your screen? I want to double check.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Let me move it forward here. Yeah. So this is probably a little better where you can see. And this is the 3.6 firmware, and it looks pretty good. We know that that's a fairly cheap little camera on the Hubsan Zino, and from where it started, they've gradually improved it. And this is 4K 30 frames per second. All the settings on automatic, other than white balance, I have that thanks to my friend Ron Brown, who told me how to do that. I have that set on sunny day. So, you can see the definition between the mountain and the sky and so forth. It looks pretty good. The drone will make a turn here pretty quick. What I did is I put it on a waypoint mission, and I actually tried to duplicate it, but when I landed it, I lost the waypoint, so I kind of had to start over again. But yeah, let's see if we can move it forward here a little bit. Yeah, there we go. So this is kind of pointed the other direction. And there again, you can see the water. And that's the dam off to the left. This is at Lucky Peak Reservoir. So I don't know. I think everybody will agree here. This is acceptable quality. It's not what we would expect out of my Mavic Pro or my Mavic 2 Zoom. But, hey, it's not bad. And I think most of us have been pretty pleased. So you've seen that. Let me go to the upgraded version here. Let me move the video forward here a little bit. There we go. That's kind of the same view we had before. Look at the graininess in the water. Look at the difference in the definition of the mountain against the sky. And if you'll notice, hopefully you guys can see it, but the video pulses a little bit. You can see it get dark and light and dark and light. Can you guys actually see that pulse over the stream?
Yes.
I can. It reminds me of the set disco from the 70s.
Yeah. I mean, so I've seen that before with the Zino, but it's been very subtle, and you really had to pay attention to see it. But boy, it's really out there this time. Let's move it forward here. Yeah, so this is kind of that little bit of that same view we saw before. And like I said, you definitely see more graininess. Look at the definition between the cloud and the mountain there. It looks kind of jagged. You can definitely see the difference. And looking at the water now, that's pretty good too. The water looks just a little grainy, and you don't have the definition of the waves and so forth in it that we had previously. And then that pulsing is enough to drive you crazy. So anyway, that's enough of that. In my mind, they ruined the camera, and I think QC guys in the chat, it's not easy to roll back the firmware, the FPV firmware. Let me get out a screen share here. How do I do that?
There you are. You're back.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So it definitely is a noticeable degradation in the video quality. So anybody with a Zino, if you're on 3.6, absolutely unequivocally do not upgrade to 3.8. And I know there's ways to back it by going into those into the actual upgrade files and changing dates, etc. But I also know it's very easy to brick your drone, so I'm probably not going to do that. So I'll probably just be hanging loose until Hubsan comes out with a corrected version, and I assume they will, because I cannot imagine that anybody could look at that and not notice that it really messed up the camera on the drone. And there's a lot of people talking about it right now, and including me. I'll have a video out here in the next couple of days that'll show all of that. So that's basically the news that I had. Yeah, looking forward to talking about the Anafi. Ron?
Yeah, well, thanks for that update, Marcus. That's really eye opener for anybody considering doing this update, or anybody would do the update without paying attention. And like you mentioned, the QC guy's in here, and he has he's collecting money for children's hospitals in and around the Pittsburgh area. Chris, if you would like to drop your link in there for the Anafi, go ahead and put it in the in chat. Drop your link in there if anybody would like to purchase a Anafi. I mean, sorry, Zino. I'm sorry, I get my drones confused. Purchase a Zino. Hopefully, Chris can provide a link from you that will all go to charity. And as we know, the Zino regularly sells for under $250. So, and of course, after Marcus's little news flight, maybe that's not good for sales, but just running on what 1.152, right?
Yeah, 1.152 is the flight control firmware. Yeah.
And the camera is 3.6 is the good one, right?
3.6 is the good one. 3.8 is the bad one. Hey, Ron, I see a question in here from Dennis Sniper with regard to the Zino and heat. Now, Dennis, I flew the other day. It was about a mid 90-degree day here. I flew both the Hubsan Zino and the Fima X8 SE at the same time. Interestingly enough, the Fima, when I put it up there, I got several drone overloaded warnings with it, which alarmed me in that it was not even at high motor usage at full throttle, some of them. And when I landed the drone, it was literally too hot to grab on the bottom. It was too hot to touch. Interestingly, I flew the Zino the same day, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't notice any difference in the performance of it, nor when I landed it, it didn't seem to be warm. Now, what I didn't do was grab the motors directly, so I can't tell you how hot the motors got, but I can tell you the drone itself did not seem to be particularly warm. Hopefully that answered your question.
And there's another quick one in there. Greg Pittman said he went back using the QC guy's method with success. Marcus and I talked about that today on the phone, that the QC guy knows the way of going back, and he documented an older video when he was talking about a gimbal repair. Maybe he'll drop the link in there, but I'm glad to know Greg had success going back, so that's good to know. So
yeah, so I might try that. I was concerned about having a problem with the drone, but man, I appreciate that, Greg.
So, Marcus, as far as I know I asked you last time I saw you, but has it changed? Do you still like the Zino better than the Fima?
Wow. So it's really tough after this one.
Well, yeah, now.
But the Fima is the best I can say. The Fima is an awesome piece of equipment. It's fast. It's powerful. There's no question it has a better camera. It literally is more stable. The controls are better. It flies better. That said, it's not quite ready for prime time with regard to features on the app. They do say the Follow Me is in beta, and I appreciate that they say that it's in beta mode. So you don't expect it to be perfect. Although I actually had it, I had the last time I flew it, it worked the best that I've seen since I've owned the drone. I've had other times that it just absolutely didn't work at all. And then the precision landing, it's just a joke. I don't even know why they say that it has precision landing, but that said, you put up with some warnings. Every once in a while you'll get a compass interfered warning, and you get the drone overloaded warnings. The drone overloaded warning is the one that's worrisome because you're afraid that something's overheating, or you could drop the thing from the sky. So
Right.
you got to pay attention to those. But I suspect that it's similar to the Zino in that as they go forward, one thing I'll say for Fimi is they're continually giving us new firmware and new upgrades. So I think they'll iron the bugs out of it. They'll get it working good. But if you're talking about, if you've got the money, of course, buy the Fimi instead of the Zino.
Sure.
But the Zino for the price is just really remarkable how well it works.
Yeah,
or how well it used to work.
Mark and I talk about this constantly, and I guess the best way you can put it is, if your budget's under $300, then the Zino it's the best cheap drone out there for camera quality, and and it flies decent. But if you have $450, get the X8. But here's the other situation. If you're like us, if you own the Mavic 2 and the Anafi, and you already own some nice drones that are nicer than the X8, and you just want something just to play with in the backyard or whatever, then the Zino is like kind of a nice toy to have around to your high-end drones.
Right.
Does that help quantify it any?
Well, I know I have quite a few people ask me about that, and they were, they've asked me about the Zino and the Fimi, which I always refer them to you guys' channel. But I always questioned it, like, if you could get up to like 450, would a refurb Anafi be a better choice?
That's a great question, and I say no doubt. If you have enough money to buy the X8, whatever it takes, Marcus and I both have $445 refurb Anafis. Definitely wait another week in the paycheck to get another $50 and get the refurb Anafi instead. Not that mechanically it's any better than the X8, but the software is Marcus has it, so I'm just speaking to what I've seen. But the software seems like it's on the level of DJI, where I think Marcus will tell you that the Fimi software is not in that ballpark. I'm not speaking for you, Marcus. I want you to.
No, you're saying exactly what I would say, Ron. I agree with you 100%.
So to answer your question, undoubtedly, just if you only own one, if you only have you don't own any drones, or you're going out to buy a drone, do whatever it takes to get the Anafi over the other two drones that we talk about.
Right. I tell people the same thing when it comes to the Evo or the Mavic 2 Zoom. I tell them all the time, my only qualm about the Evo, I think it's an awesome drone. It's definitely.
You right?
I actually got rid of it. I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, but you have hands-on, so we're hands-on. Marcus, we've only drooled about it, watching other people fly it.
I mean, it's got, it's probably that camera looks the best. Straight out of camera quality, I think the Evo looks the best. And that's why I tell people, if you're not looking the color grade and you just want to upload quickly and you're in that $1,000 range, get the Evo. But it's severely lacking when it comes to features if you want to compare it to DJI's.
Features as far as like the follow me and all that kind of things?
The dynamic tracking isn't as good. The waypoints, although they did just update that, the waypoints when I had it was a joke, and the point of interest worked okay, but that kind of thing didn't work very good. And when I had it, they were supposed to have ironed out the firmware issues with the gimbal, and I was still having problems with it. It would be fine, and then in mid-flight it would just get sideways. And then you'd have to bring it back down, repower it to fix it, and then go fly again. But
okay, well, let's talk about the killer feature that everybody. How about that 4K 60? Is that how important is the 4K 60 on the Evo as compared to its competitors, the Mavics and the Phantom 4 Pro and those types such? quad.
So this is my experience with using 4K 60, and this is across the board with like using the GoPros and the DJI Osmo Action. I think 4K 60 is a great feature to have, especially if you're doing fast motion that you want to slow down, or you can also fly normal and slow down your footage. So you can get that more like cinematic look,
Mhm.
But as far as do I need it now that I'm so used to shooting in 30 and 24 frames per second, I actually feel like I don't need it, but I'm a big feature like option guy. So if you're going to give me the option, definitely want the option. But if I could have better image quality, I would rather take better image quality over a higher frame rate.
Well said and well explained. I really like that answer because I'm one of the people. Even if I have a device that has the 60 frames per second on it, I don't find myself using as much, and that's not down in it. I mean, people that want it, that's great. If you need it, that's great. But just for me, it's not a killer feature for me. I'd rather, just as you said, I'd rather have the image quality.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I shoot, I shoot 30 frames per second when I'm shooting videos, just like reviews, and I'll call it throwaway videos. And I usually do 24 frames per second for all my quote cinematic looking videos.
Right. I actually bounce back and forth quite a bit.
Well, good. We want to hear more about that. Now, listen, I know we're keeping all these people in wait here. They want to hear about the Anafi and talk about the Anafi. I'm going to put the pressure on you, Ethan. Jeff
Sure.
Martin, and thanks, Jeff, for being with us tonight. He has asked, multiple questions here, and I don't know if we can get to every single one of them. So would you scroll back and maybe pick one out that you found the most interesting, and then maybe we can elaborate, and maybe that'll turn into an answer of many questions once we get into the first one or the one that you find interesting.
Well, I know Jet asked a question on in one of my comments on the video I posted yesterday, and I actually don't have the answer for it, but I am going to find out tomorrow. And the question was, if you're doing I think if I understood it correctly, if you're doing a long flight plan and the remote for whatever reason disconnects, the Nafi will continue the flight plan. I'm going to test it. I know if the phone disconnects, yes, the Anafi will still continue the flight plan. I don't know if the remote, like if you folded the remote up and turned the remote off, I don't know if it would still do that. So I'm going to test that. And also his second question on the same lines was, if the battery's getting low, will it initiate a return to home, or will it continue the flight plan and just fall out of the sky? I'm pretty sure it will do a return to home, but again, I'm going to test it tomorrow.
Oh, good answer. Hey, look, I have a quick question. You brought up the flight plan. Do you know the Gadget Inspector? He has a pretty good sized YouTube channel.
Yes.
He did an exhaustive series on the Bebop 2 when he had it, and he's just got the Anafi, in this summer. And he did a video recently where he was testing out the flight plan, and the flight plan for the Anafi has a clickable button where it says like, "Don't stop at the waypoints, just fly right through them." But he made this elaborate waypoint flight, but it still hesitated at each waypoint, and he was really disturbed because his Parrot Bebop 2, which is also made by Parrot, I think I said Parrot too many times, it does it and doesn't hesitate. Have you seen this or tested this at all?
No, mine goes right through them, but you got to put it on progressive. Yeah, it's like, let me see what it's called. I could look it up real quick. I know to fly right through them, it's called progressive. I forget what the other option is called. I never use it.
And let's ask this question: are you on Android or iOS?
iOS.
Okay, so maybe it could even be a phone app issue.
It definitely could be.
I have no idea what the Gadget Inspector is using, but we're in negotiations with the Gadget Inspector to get him on a future episode and talk about the Anafi a little bit, and maybe even get Billy Kyle back to talk about it. In fact, at some point we want to come on like a panel of Anafi owners, and
That'd be cool.
some of the luminaries of the Anafi world. Again, somebody like Billy, who kind of like went to the Anafi presentation last summer, and they didn't give him one, and he didn't really buy one until this summer. But anyhow, I digress. And let's get back into the questions again. You see any other ones you want to tackle there?
I'm still looking, but I did want to bring up a a subscriber left a comment on one of my videos today about new regulations that are going into place in Europe, and he said basically he was implying that the Anafi is basically cleared under some of these regulations, but other drones will not be. And I tried to look it up. He called it, I think he abbreviated it as a CO reg code. It's under the CO code. And I tried to look it up and I couldn't find any information on that. But what I found was interesting when I was in Costa Rica. I think I told you guys this last week, but when I was in Costa Rica, we were at a national park, and I asked the park ranger if I could fly it because according to their national website, I could fly there, but I figured best to ask anyway.
Right.
I don't want any more issues. But so I asked him, and he said, "No, this is a national park. You can't fly." I was just like, "Okay, whatever." But I had it in my bag, and I showed it to him, and he immediately recognized it, and he said, "Oh, that one's fine." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." He goes, "That one's small and quiet. It doesn't bother the animals." He said, "We're even looking into getting those for ourselves to monitor animals." I was like, "Really?" So I went flew.
That is interesting. No, not this is a national park, but I was flying my Anafi on the beach yesterday, later in the day, when most people left, but the seagulls were all around. I was flying the Anafi around. It didn't bother the seagulls at all. I could land it right beside it. They didn't even move. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
It didn't bother the seagulls whatsoever.
I've even noticed that most birds don't really attack it or anything other than like when I had a Phantom 4 at one time, I feel like it was a bird magnet.
Wow. Marcus, something for us? Go ahead, Marcus.
Well, I was going to say, we here in Idaho is where we have the World Center for Birds of Prey here, and I have a friend that is a big shot out there at the World Center Birds of Prey, and I was concerned about when I fly out there on the Snake River Gorge and everything. The last thing I want to do is bother any nesting raptors or anything, cause any problems. So I asked him about that. I said, "Hey, is that drone, am I bothering anything?" He said, "You know what, Marcus? Not only are you not bothering anything," he said, "we are starting to use drones to check nests for eggs and see if they've hatched and so forth." Because he said, what we used to do is rappel down the mountainside, and obviously there's some danger associated with that. So he said, "Yeah, now we just use a drone." So right. I thought that was interesting. And one more thing, where I was flying with the Zino there is out at that Lucky Peak Reservoir. I actually have to have a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to fly there. And what they told me was, they said, "Listen, you just send us an email. Once you get your permit, just make sure you have it on you. And you don't even have to ask us. Just tell us, send us an email, say when you're going to be there and fly." And I thought, wow, if that's a hoop I have to jump through, that's no big deal. Happy to do it.
Right.
Hey, Ethan, in the chat, Cigar Nation Warriors, that's Bill. He's one of our regulars. He said Lance is having a webinar this Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, that would be great. It's definitely really a long time overdue for them to get. Hopefully, they'll talk about what the steps you got to go through for hobbyists.
Right. Listen, I want to get into something you love here, the editing process, and specifically the Anafi, and we're going to get in video in a second here. I got a couple of questions on that, but on photos. Now, I noticed right away it had the barrel distortion in the photos, and
right.
Bill Powell, we talked about in that show. So then I found out, a couple websites said, well, you put it into, JPEG plus RAW. It doesn't have to be both, but that React one, it would take the barrel distortion out. And
it's called
JPEG, but it does on the RAWs.
Yeah, it's called rectilinear.
Yes.
And it basically takes out the barrel distortion. I think they did fix that for the. I know they have it for JPEG. I just want to look. I think they fixed it for DNG also.
Okay, I just shot some yesterday, and my JPEGs look perfect, but the DNGs still had the barrel distortion in them.
So I have to look into that because I know I'm looking at the app right now. It has DNG plus JPEG rectilinear. Yeah, so that's the one you'd want to use to make sure to get rid of that.
Do you have like a favorite, like I don't know, quick correction for the barrel distortion in the if it does have it on the photos?
Yeah, I mean, well, Final Cut Pro. I use Final Cut Pro, and I edit photos with that too. But there is a under the video effects. There's a thing called distortion, and there's a barrel distortion feature on there, and you can adjust how much you want to increase or decrease it. So if you've got a GoPro, any basically camera that has that fisheye look to it, you can fix it with that effect.
Right. I mean, I can fix it. I can fix it in Lightroom, but it's but manually. So it's getting there. It's play with it manually. I wanted a push button solution, but thanks for.
Yeah. Well, Final Cut Pro gives you the options that you can actually set it to where you want it, save that as a default, so the next time you need it, you just click on it.
Nice. That's real helpful. And I think it was your most recent video, or maybe the one before we did the update on the update that came out in May for the Anafi. Mm-hmm. That I don't know what they call it, but when it takes the photo and it's like a 360 photo, and I was showing Marcus on the phone, and because I couldn't get it, I thought you could get off the phone. I was spinning it all around for him, and it was such high quality, but I didn't, until I saw your video, I didn't realize it's almost like having an Insta 361 camera where you just turn that to what you want to see and then click the image out of that. It's almost like having a 360 camera. You don't have to point; it just gets everything.
Right.
Which is great. I'll have to. I don't think I've talked to Marcus about that, but you'll have to try that where that 360 photo where it just gets everything, and then in post you just pick what you wanted to be the picture, but you don't have to worry if you were facing south and something wonderful happened north, you still have it.
You still have it.
And from what I can see, you not only have it, but it's much higher res on like the Insta 361 camera. To me, it looked higher res.
Yeah, it's just as high as res as any single photo from the Anafi, and it's just all stitched together. So yeah, it looks really good.
Right. And I'm jumping through things here. Marcus and we talked about this too. When I first got it, and Marcus too, I think it automatically defaults to HDR video. And I noticed like a lot of noise and stuff in that. And then I got playing around, and I'm an amateur photographer all my life, and I was heavily in HDR when it came out 10 years ago for photos. And you have to apply it to me. I find you have to apply the same thing you do with photos. You only use it when it's necessary. If you just use it all the time, it's making this big file, and I think it's creating noise in the image. But when you want to use it, when you have a big contrast in areas between light and dark, and you want to like catch both or whatever you want to catch the lights and the detail and the shadows, and you've got too much sun, you don't want that overexposing. That's when you take an HDR photo. And I found the same way with the Anafi video. You only really want to use the HDR when it actually is necessary, or when you think it's necessary. Don't just have it on by default, which I think out of the box it kind of is on default. Am I right on any of this, Ethan?
Yeah, I think I notice whenever I update the app, it always seems to be on whenever I go back into it. But yeah, I don't use it. I think it's a selling feature that and as far as like post processing and editing, it's not really true HDR. Like it's not that 2020 color space that you're getting with the Mavic 2 Pro. But I think it's a selling feature. The only time I really use it if I want to fly real quick, and because I think it does a better job at auto exposure because of the higher dynamic range that it has. So auto exposure on that is a little bit better than just shooting like natural. But if I'm not using P-Log and I just want to shoot something really quick, I'll pop it into HDR just so I don't have to fiddle with the exposure. But 100% of the time, I'm in P-Log.
Now,
hey Ron,
Marcus, jump in there, Marcus.
Well, I just saw QC guy is asking for a blue wrench, and he'll put the link up for the Zino downgrade firmware.
Okay, tell him I'm working on it here. Add as moderator.
Chris,
Okay, Chris, you should be good now.
I'm sorry, Ron. I just didn't know if you'd seen.
Marcus, I've been talking too much, Marcus. You have anything, or you want to talk about anything in the chat, or?
Listen, you guys are educating me on HDR and on manual settings. Listen, I am the king of automatic. And Ethan, I got to tell you, Ron is the guy that finally talked me into changing white balance.
Well, that's step one
now, and I see the difference in my videos. So,
yeah.
Well,
that's good.
am I right? I'm right there, Ethan. It's better to set it on like whatever sunny, cloudy, because then there's the same exposure through the whole shot or flight or whatever. If you have an auto, it could change back and forth how many times on you before you're done the flight. And then when you're trying to correct it in post, you got this ever changing exposure. Again, am I on base with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if you go back to the very first Anafi video I made when I first got it, and I actually talk about that, where there is actually one scene where I'm using one of the smart dronies, I think they're called, using one of those features where it's looking down and it pans up as it's going forward. You can see, because I left it in full auto, you can see how the colors shift as it's flying and bringing the camera up because the white balance is changing.
Yeah.
So you definitely want to set that at least, because, and actually, even if you have it sunny, cloudy, or blue sky, it doesn't really matter which one you pick because you can always change that in post. Almost every editor has white balance adjustment now.
And let me add, and you could change it post, and you only have to change it one time in post because it's not. If you have an auto, you may have to change it multiple times in post.
Right.
Or if you have it on sunny and you were wrong, you just change it one time for the whole video.
If you're trying to do any kind of color work or any kind of like grading or corrections or anything like that, if your exposure is changing during that shot, that is a nightmare to fix.
Yeah, yeah. So good advice for anybody in the chat there, and who wants to.
Well, Ron is slowly bringing me along, Ethan, slowly but surely.
And I'm mostly bringing my knowledge from the photography world. I mean, I'm kind of new to. Before I got my Phantom 4 in 2016, I mean, I hardly ever shot in a video my whole life. I mean, little cell phone video here and there that I didn't do anything but just point and shoot or whatever. So I didn't know anything about video till I got that Phantom 4 in 2016. Really,
right?
You know, I didn't know anything about. I mean, you know, I knew about shutters for the camera, but I didn't know about, you know, you had to have the proper shutter speed because people looked like they were walking too fast or too slow or whatever. Because it's still photography, you know. You don't want anybody moving most of the time, you know.
Right.
I mean, doing some kind of artistic shot where he wants the motion blur, but you know, I knew how to do, you know, adjust the manual shutter and that. But you know, and the only thing I used the ND filter in still photography was if you had a waterfall, you put like a real, you know, like a high ND filter, and so the water would have that blur and things like that. But again, but some of the knowledge from photography applies to the video, not always, but it helps.
Right. Actually, while we're on the topic of exposure, I remember Jet asked a question about when you would use the auto exposure lock.
Oh, good question.
And you would. So, Marcus, this is going to help you out. So, if you don't want to fool with ISO and shutter and all that stuff, you can tap on the screen and it will do an exposure lock. Then, when you start recording, it'll hold that exposure no matter what. So that'll keep your exposure from jumping all over the place during your footage.
And let me add to, you know, what Ethan said there. So when you tap that exposure lock, so what you do is, you know, you tap in the area, like if it's if it's too dark, you know, you tap in a dark area to light it up, and the opposite of whatever. So you
So if
how you want the screen to adjust.
If your environment changes, you just reach out to adjust.
Right.
Correct. And you know, you almost may want to like stop the footage to start again. So again, you don't have exposure changing a whole bunch in the same shot or whatever. I mean, this makes it easy for editing purposes. And here's a trick I just learned recently, Ethan. If you turn iOS, it's set to auto, but if you change it to 100, then you get a histogram on the screen, which, I mean, I'm one of those people, I much prefer a histogram than having blinkies or highlight warnings or anything like that, you know. I just like to keep that, you know, the Instagram scale, you know, right in the middle, not have the edges get, you know, too far over on either side.
Right. I use histogram on every camera that I own. I don't use the zebra. I know a lot of people that love the zebras. I don't. I just look at the histogram. And I know, you know, there is, it's whatever you want to use, but I like the histogram. I use it on my Canon. I use it on the Osmo Action. I use it on every drone that I have. And I was really biting at the bit that Parrot add that to the Anafi. They didn't add it, I think, until it was 6 months after it was released. And it was definitely long overdue.
Now, how long have you had the Anafi, Ethan?
I got it back in August when it first was released.
Okay. And I mean, we've talked about this before, but you use firsthand. How much better is the drone today than when you bought it last August?
So image quality and P-log and as far as like the camera controls, I think are exactly the same. The features that they've added are awesome. They've made some changes to the flight plan. The flight plan works much better now. The tap and fly now has that point of interest feature, which I think is spectacular. Cameraman is about the same. The follow me, they upgraded that, so the follow me now has those 3 different tracking options, where before it only had the 1. But they've definitely come a long way with their upgrade, and they've done a lot of like housekeeping things in the app too. Like the media gallery is completely different now and works much better. They've added a little things here and there, like beside the record button, it'll tell you how much space is left on the SD card. A lot of that stuff I could care less about, but it's nice little features to have.
Marcus and I both purchased the drone and maybe around April or maybe late March or something in that period. And when I got it, I flew it before I did like the firmware update that was already waiting for it, and that made it much better. Then I did the one in May, so I've only had it for a couple months, and I've seen it drastically get better and more useful. And so I said I can't say enough for the price. I can't say. I keep saying I think in its price category, it's the best drone, and without a doubt or whatever.
Oh yeah, I think it's right up there with, like definitely it's better than the Mavic 1 aside from the range. Mavic 1, you're talking the OcuSync, but as far as like a drone, flight characteristics and camera quality, it's right up there with almost as good as the Evo and the Mavic 2s.
Right. It was a recent video Billy Kyle did where he used to carry the Mavic 2 Pro in his bag and the Mavic Air with him, as the Mavic Air was the backup. But he recently switched that Mavic Air out for the Anafi because he said that all the Mavic Air was just a lesser Mavic Pro. It did the same thing. It didn't do anything different. Where him putting the Anafi in the bag, now he has like zoom capabilities. He has the gimbal that moves all the way up, and it just it's different. It actually complements the Mavic 2 Pro rather than just be a lesser version of the same thing. Do you agree or see his points with that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think basically for what I do, the only thing that the Mavic 2 Pro has that the Anafi doesn't is obviously the much better camera. Its active tracking is better, and the big one is the range. That OcuSync 2.0 is just, you can go way out there, and having that high def video feed on your phone just makes getting those shots really, really nice. As far as color grading, I have also noticed the P-log on the Anafi and the D-log on the Mavic 2 actually grade really well together. So it's really easy to match those two. It's actually way easier to match those two than it is the Zoom and the Mavic 2.
Wow, no idea. Now, talk us through a little bit of your editing process with the P-log coming out of the Anafi. First of all, what editor do you use?
I use Final Cut Pro.
Okay, you said that already. Sorry. Okay, so talk us through a little of the editing process with the P-log coming out of the Anafi.
So color grading, what you're going to do, I actually have a video on this. It's in the Anafi playlist on my channel if anybody's interested in looking at it. And it will apply to any editor that you can use LUTs on. But basically what I do, I take a Blackmagic LUT, and basically what I downloaded there's a company called Motion Effects, and they have a free plugin for Final Cut Pro that allows you to have access to many of their LUTs for free. It's all free. And they have a lot of LUTs that are for log footage on different cameras. They have Blackmagic, Canon, Sony, DJI, ARRI red cameras. They got a whole bunch of log to Rec 709. And basically one of the there's 2 Blackmagic LUTs that I use all the time. And they convert the log footage to Rec 709, so all the colors look normal.
Could you explain to the audience what a Rec 709 is?
So Rec 709 is like the standard for 8-bit color space. So, and that's what almost everything can view. So all your TVs are going to be in Rec 709, all your phones, all your devices. Basically everything's in Rec 709. When you get into HDR, that's when you get into the 2020 color space, which technically any camera that can do 10-bit log can do 2020 color space. But the problem we're having now is not every device can see it. You can't view it. Most of the televisions and monitors are out right now aren't HDR monitors yet. They're coming. Right. And the ones that are out, they say that they do HDR. It's not true HDR. It's like an HDR effect, what they call it. Some of them, the higher end ones are doing it. Like the OLED TVs, I think are true HDR, but anything else that's like LCD, it's an HDR effect. Technically it's not true HDR, right? But it still looks good though. But if you're trying to color grade and get into that HDR space, it's a totally different ball game.
Hey, so those free LUTs you're talking about, they're the links in the video you described on your channel, on your Anafi playlist, correct?
Correct.
Good. I'm going to go visit. Hey, Marcus, do you want to go to the chat room and read Cigar Nation Warriors' question off? He says it's a little off topic, but maybe we can help him out.
Let's see. He says his Windows 10 computer doesn't recognize his SD in adapter, can't upload his videos for YouTube. So typically that is a power issue, as I recall. That whenever I've had that problem, you want to make sure it's that you're getting enough power to your USB connectors. That can be an issue. The other thing that I would say would be just to try a different SD card adapter. Try a different one. It's weird. Sometimes that can make a difference. Any other ideas? Anybody?
Are you a Windows or Mac guy?
He said Windows. Windows 10.
Are you a Windows or Mac guy, Ethan?
Oh, me, I have a Mac.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's why I threw that to Marcus, because he's our Windows expert on the panel.
Right. Yeah. I've been thinking about trading, but I don't know yet. I've been using Mac forever. That's what I'm used to.
Right. Right.
So that's kind of interesting. So do you guys ever have? I have it with my Windows 10 computer sometimes that it doesn't. I'll stick a card in there with an adapter and it just won't recognize it. And sometimes you'll unplug it and plug it back in a few times, and boom, it comes up. And I also have a powered USB adapter or one of those USB that'll add more USB port.
Hub's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, hub. There you go. Hey, I knew we could do it. But it and that one seems to work, and I know it has to do with the power. And then I've sometimes just switched to a different adapter, and boom, it recognizes it. So it's probably more of a Windows mystery.
Well, I've had adapters go bad on me.
Yeah, I've had the same thing. Like I'm pulling. It happens to be more of micro SDs than it does the full size SDs. I don't know what they call the full size ones out of a real camera, but I'll put them in the adapter and put them on my computer, and it won't see it. And I just keep switching around until I hit an adapter works, because I have like a drill full of these adapters. So eventually one of them will work. So that's what I would try. Bill, just trying a different adapter, as Marcus suggested. It's the same thing on the Mac side. Marcus has there he goes.
Yeah, so this little guy right here, it's a little what brand is it? Transcend. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. This bigger one is a Kingston. It's got a micro SD on one side and an SD on the other. It works every time. So I have a feeling it's probably more of an adapter problem than anything.
Do you have this is the Ethan? Do you have the 27-inch iMac, or do you have like a monitor hooked up to a Mac Pro or something? What's your
I have a monitor hooked up to my MacBook Pro.
Right.
I actually like the MacBook Pro because I take it with me to work a lot, and I work on stuff there in my free time. So it goes with me everywhere out the door. I would love, my brother actually, he's a graphics designer. He's got an iMac and his machine will smoke my computer.
Yeah. I just mentioned that because I used to have a card reader, like even more of a sophisticated one than Marcus had, and it died or whatever, I don't know, a year or more ago. And I never got around the other one. So I just stick the memory card in the slot in the back of the iMac or whatever, and it seems to work fine. So I was never a priority to replace that with another fancy hub. We had a comment in there from Dennis. Knifler, for those thinking the Zino, he said he has had over 100 flights and pretty much trouble-free. He said it's a fun drone. And somebody on, did you watch the video? I don't know whose video it was, Marcus, where they somebody had all the time. They've logged in the Zino with no issues.
I haven't seen that one, and I cannot say that. I've certainly had a few issues with the Zino, but what I've watched them do is improve that thing to the point now that it is a very reliable drone, and it's just a ball to fly. And I think part of it is knowing that it's a $250 drone, and you're not as worried about it as maybe something more expensive. And then particularly when they got that camera where it was really looking pretty good, man, it really made it a fun drone to mess around with. So, yeah, I guess that's about it with the Zino. I recommend it, and I think it's I think Hubson. The only regret that I have, and I bet you every number of the people in the chat will agree, all they did was release it too soon before they had it smoothed out. Now that they've got it smoothed out, does it have some faults? Yeah, it's not the most stable drone out there, and there's a few. It doesn't have as many features as some other drones. It's not a particularly fast drone. I think the top speed is about 17 miles an hour, something like that. But it certainly gets the job done. It doesn't have the longest battery life, but you can get 15 or 16 minutes out of it. And batteries are cheap. They're about $30 a piece. So, you can afford to have a few batteries. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with the thing.
So
Yeah.
I got a question for you guys. So what video editors do you guys use? And does anybody in the chat use app-based editors?
That is a good question. I use,
You go first, Marcus.
yeah, so I use Magic's Movie Edit Pro, and it's kind of a middle of the range editor that for my use is perfect.
Right.
For all of my reviews and non-cinematic videos, I just use iMovie because everything transfers from the phone to the iPad up, so you could upgrade from one to the other. But if I'm doing a cinematic type video, I use DaVinci Resolve.
Right. Yeah. For anybody that doesn't want to buy one, DaVinci Resolve is awesome.
Well, I've been using Resolve when it was only a color editor, before it could do everything. So I used to just move the video, from that into iMovie. But just recently, I've got into using LumaFusion on the iPad. Have you tried that, Ethan?
Yeah, LumaFusion is great. I don't have an iPad Pro, and I don't have a large iPad. I got the smaller one, so that's the biggest thing I noticed about that is if you're on a phone or on a smaller iPad, it's going to be challenging just because their screen real estate is limited. But I think the fact that that's got LUT based, where you could add LUTs in that is awesome. You can do almost everything on that I could do in Final Cut.
I've just started to get into it. I've only made one video on it so far, and basically just a learning process. It was a non-cinematic video, but I can tell people, anybody's thinking about it. I have the iPad Pro, the 12.9 inch, but the very first one, which is like maybe 3 years old now, and it still runs fine on a 3-year-old iPad. And if you have iPad, use the pencil. The pencil is great using LumaFusion.
Right. The biggest thing that I get, my friends and family ask me a lot is like, I want to buy a drone. And then my next question is, aside from how much do you want to spend, is how are you going to edit your videos? They don't think about that part. And that is such a key part to uploading any kind of content is you got to have an editor that you're willing to learn. It's intuitive.
Right. I've been thinking about going to Final Cut because everybody tells me if you know how to use iMovie, Final Cut's an easy step up. So I've really been thinking about switching to Final Cut because I love Resolve. I love the color editing. I love all the editing process, but I've never really been happy with the actual editing of the video. Only the color correction part of it.
Oh yeah, if you like iMovie, that process, that kind of workflow that iMovie has, I actually started on iMovie myself years ago. But so just moving to Final Cut Pro, everything is going to be exactly the same. You're just going to have complete control over every little detail.
So I should probably make the switch. I can still keep Resolve on just to do some color corrections and editing, right?
Right. But I mean, if you want to do any kind of stabilization, or if you want to do any kind of green screen work, or the list goes on and on, the possibilities which you can do in Final Cut.
Right. One real quick thing, and then I'll stop talking for a while. Do you do any like a video with your phone? And what I'm getting at is, are you aware? Do you use the app Filmic Pro? I think it's an iPhone app only.
I don't use that. I use the Moment app that the Moment lenses that you can get for your phone. I use their app because it gives you complete control over every little detail of the camera settings. So I don't have Moment lenses, but I like using that app.
The app's free.
Yes, it is.
But
I think it's like $5 or $6 or something.
Filmic Pro is about I think 20, but it opens up every little thing that the phone could do, even stuff that you couldn't even find in Apple-based apps. And
right.
And Luma, and I'm segueing to LumaFusion. It even has lots of stuff from Filmic Pro. The edit your video in LumaFusion, and even though it's a phone app, it still has a log file. This is Filmic Pro, and another good thing about it, if you use it with a gimbal such as the DJI, what's their handheld gimbal called? Osmo Mobile. You can, and I use the Zino Smooth 4. Both of them, you can use the buttons on the gimbal to control the camera function, so you don't have to really touch the screen to do much stuff. But I'm digressing here off of drones and whatever. So I've been talking way too much. Ethan, if there's anything you want to bring up or talk about that we haven't brought up, or if Marcus has questions or whatever, I'm going to stop talking and let you guys, talk a little more. So either one of you, take it away.
Well, I don't have a whole lot tonight other than what I've already talked about with the Zino. I'll mess around some more with the Fima X8 SE. I'm having a lot of fun with that drone. I've got a trip coming up here this week. I will be in Las Vegas this coming week, so maybe on the drive down there, I might take a couple drones with me and put them up and see if I can get some footage there. And I really want to get the Anafi in the air again. I feel like I have been kind of neglecting my Anafi, but I do have a question, Ethan. Last time I put it in the air, I was in a wide open area. I was over by the Sawtooth Mountains and hoped to get some pretty good footage with it. And I put it in sport mode so I could cover ground faster. And I noticed a lot of unintended movements of the gimbal. It snapped back and forth a few times. Is that common in sport mode?
I've only seen the gimbal do that when I've been like changing direction. Like if I'm going up really fast, sometimes it'll bobble just a little bit because the gimbal is trying to like smooth things out, but sometimes it'll kind of like delay a little bit. So if I'm like moving up really fast, or if I turn left or turn right a little too quick, it'll kind of bobble a little bit. Also, what you could do is try and see if in your pilot settings, if you have bank turns turned on or off. I usually leave that off, so when you're turning, it won't kind of pitch into the turn, and that's going to affect your gimbal too.
Oh, that makes sense. I'm pretty sure I've got that off, but I suspect my issues had to do with moving up or down too fast. That's probably what I did.
Right. So, but if you're moving in a straight line, if you say like you're just hovering and then you just jam the stick forward and you got all your settings maxed out, so it goes as fast as it's going to go, what's going to happen? So the Anafi is going to pitch forward really hard, and the gimbal is going to point down for a split second, and then it's going to come back up.
That is exactly what happened to me. That's what I did. Okay, that answers that. That's my biggest Anafi question of the night.
And it's going to do the reverse of that when you suddenly stop.
Yeah, because it's it comes
So
back.
if you want to like start, if you want to get good, I usually cut those 2 sections out when I'm editing. But if you want to like get that smooth continuous, you got to ease into it.
Yeah, because the only downside I have with the Anafi is that when you have it in film mode, it does move so slow, and there's times that you want to cover ground a little bit faster.
That would definitely be on my wish list for them to put in a firmware update is a third piloting setting, because as far as like being able to control your settings, I think that has the very best as far as, like user customization as far as flight. That you're not getting that with any DJI product, and you're not getting that with the Evo. You can't adjust how much angle it's going to tilt or how fast it goes. You can't, precisely control that. Where the Anafi you can. So I've got my rates up pretty high, probably about midway up in film mode, and then I got everything maxed out in sport. But I do wish there was like an in between. So because there are times I would really like to have it like do almost like tripod mode on like a Mavic.
Right.
So I would like to see them add a third option, but we'll see if we get that. I actually go in there quite often and adjust those sliders depending on what I'm doing.
Hey guys, we had some answers to your questions in the chat about what editors did we use. Nemo's in here. Hello, Nemo. He's been in here a while. Didn't get to acknowledge it. He uses Final Cut. Parks and Tech uses Power Director 17. Nemo used to use iMovie. I've got some more Final Cut. QC guys talking about Final Cut. So that's some of the editors that they've been using in here.
I'm actually surprised not to see as many Premiere Pro people.
Have you tried Premiere, Ethan?
I've dabbled with it a little bit, just because that's what my brother uses for his job, and it's a little different. It's not, for me, it's not as intuitive. But I think if that's what you first started out with, I think it's going to be just like anything else. It's all a matter of what you grew up with.
Right. Hey, Marcus, in the background and Ethan's set there, I think I see a spark on the wall.
There is, yeah. There's a spark back there.
Now, Ethan, is that Spark 1 or the Spark 2?
I wish it was a Spark 2.
Okay. You had an advanced review unit back there.
What about the Spark Challenge?
What's that?
Have you heard about the Spark Challenge?
No, what's that?
Well, I did this based off a comment Billy Kyle made when he was on here about they improved the Spark. You don't need the OTG cable anymore. So a couple of weeks later, I went down the beach and I flew it twice, once with the OTG and once without. And I got to I already forget my numbers. Like I got the 2,000 meters. I don't know with the Spark, and then I got like considerably less. I mean, with the Wi-Fi, I got considerably less using the OTG cable, right? So then Marcus, he did the same test, and he did the reverse. He got like, better with the OTG cable than he did than using just Wi-Fi.
Right. I actually never noticed a change in distance with whether I'm using that or not. What I did notice is the video lag on the screen. The video lag on the screen is much higher if you're using Wi-Fi than if you're plugged directly into the remote. And
we've pretty much come to the conclusion that the cable has nothing to do with your distance. It is all about the FPV signal. But I mean, when I first got the Spark, I mean, I could get like 500 feet away, and I was already getting FPV breakups. And this is on Wi-Fi. And then, like you said, we got the OTG cable, and it was much better. But I mean, on when I did my Spark, a little over 2,000 feet. I already forget what it was. I get so confused on that stuff. I had until the end. I'm going to say until the last like couple hundred meters, the FPV was pretty good, and then you could see it slow down to a crawl. And maybe I don't remember it on the with the OTG cable, seeing slow down. But I mean, I flew these I moved back to back, same exact route, same exact condition. So it was no practical reason why it didn't go as far on the second flight with the OTG cable, which again probably had nothing to do with the range, but
yeah, there could be some like other radio interference in the area causing that.
Right. Speaking of radio interference, go ahead, Marcus. Go ahead.
You say it was feet.
Okay, feet. We did it, feet. Thank you. Speaking of radio interferences, I'm gonna talk up the little Zino here. One day, this is back in May. I had the Anafi kind of around when I first got it. Had the Zino at the beach, same location. I was just over the bulkhead on the beach side, and I took the Anafi up, and I was too near the house, and got that Wi-Fi interference, and the FPV was breaking up, and it was warning me. But once I moved it out towards the ocean, everything was fine, right? Then I knew what it was. It was just Wi-Fi interference from houses. So when I brought back and landed, same thing. I got the break up and the messages, and I landed. Then I put the Zino up, same exact location, right next to his house. And guess what? The Zino had no Wi-Fi interference whatsoever. So this cheap toy drone somehow was shielded better against the Wi-Fi from the houses than the more expensive Anafi was.
It could. So I actually, while you're talking about that, I have recommendations about max range on your Anafi.
Good.
So this is what I've noticed, and I've seen a lot of people posting about this. So in order to get max range and best connectivity with your Anafi, because it is Wi-Fi based. So number one, you have to be keeping the remote pointed at the drone. And if you notice, the bottom of the app will have like a little map, like a little radar map, and then you'll see which way you're pointing and where the drone is. So when you're pointing right at the drone, it'll be green. If you're pointed away from the drone, it'll turn red. So that's first tip right there.
No idea. Thank you. That is great information.
Because Wi-Fi is very, very dependent on line of sight. Another thing, your phone really needs to be in airplane mode, so your phone itself isn't broadcasting any radio signals at all. That's going to help a lot. If you notice that it's suffering from range, you need to go into your network settings and see if it's on 5 gigahertz or 2 gigahertz. And if it's on 5, which should be good, try clicking it over to one of the frequencies that is in the 2 gigahertz range, and that's also going to help boost your range. So,
great information. I will try that the next flight out. Now, I mean, what's the best range you've got on the Anafi? And I'm gonna before you give the answer, I'm gonna say that the QC guy took his out over how far, Marcus? Was it over 2,000, 3,000 meters at the reservoir?
I thought it was 2 clicks. Chris is in the chat here.
Yeah, Chris, while Ethan's telling us what his best range was, did you put in the chat how far you got the Anafi out at the reservoir last month? So go ahead, Ethan. What's your best range on that thing so far?
My best range has been, I think it's been a long time ago, because it really scares the crap out of me flying that far with that. After 1,000 feet, you can't see it. I don't care who you are, you cannot see that little thing. But I think I had it when I first got it. We took it out to I think it was out to 2.2 miles. And that's when I started to get really, really nervous. And then I turned around and brought it back.
Now, how far? Now say that again.
2.2 miles.
Oh, wow.
So I think, on a perfect day, it could do the 2.5 as advertised, maybe. But yeah, it'll go out there if you're, but you're talking clear line of sight. It was at 400 feet. So we had, straight shot, and it was in the 2 gigahertz frequency. And
now what kind of area was this? No homes, just nature?
Yeah, this was all farmland over our fields.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
So we didn't have any interference or anything like that to deal with.
Makes sense.
You guys, if you want to get the Anafi out tomorrow and go for a flight.
Yeah, give it a try.
Well, look, did you see, guys? It's on set tonight. On set with us.
I actually had somebody in the chat. I was asking about ND filters.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up. I wanted to get to that.
So I use ND filters on just about everything when I'm outside. So obviously with drones, I have ND filters for every drone that I have. And I use the free well filters. And
There's not a lot of choice in the market for the Anafi. I have the also.
Right. But I've noticed Freewell, I think they make two different styles, but the style that you want is got the really like low profile with like the chamfered edges. That's the one that you want to get. My Anafi, I don't know if it was something because it was like early production, doesn't have any problems doing a gimbal calibration. Like when I power it up, I just leave the ND filters on and I can power it up, no problems. But I've had a lot of people say to me they can't do that with like the lens cap on or an ND filter on. It'll give them like a gimbal error.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. Jet Martin asked that question in the chat about the ND filters and passing the test and whether you had to put them hot and cold. Now, unlike you, my Anafi, it came past the gimbal test with the lens cap on or whatever, it'll fail. So I have to put all my ND filters on hot when it's already gone.
Right.
So, that's unfortunate, but maybe that can be fixed with a firmware update. And why I say that is when I first got Spark, I had got the Polar Pros that came out not long after it was released, and I maybe at first they worked, but then an update made it so that you couldn't put them on. You had to put them on hot, and it's gone back and forth. Some firmware updates you could put them on hot, and some you couldn't. I think right now they will go on cold, but hopefully they can get this guy fixed at some point. Well,
I actually don't think it's the firmware. I think it's something in the manufacturing of the gimbal, because one of my subscribers that's in I think he's out in Norway, he would send me some photos of like what he had to do. He had to basically cut out a notch in the bottom of his lens cap because the lens cap was hitting something on the gimbal when it would do its calibration, and that's why it was failing. So he cut a little section like of the rim of the lens cap off on the very bottom, and then it would pass. So that tells me it's hitting something. Mine with the lens cap on, it doesn't hit anything. So I think something in the manufacturing there. Either they move the camera back a little bit, or there's a piece of plastic. I don't have another Anafi to like compare them, but
yeah, that's real interesting. They're talking about it in the chat. Well, first of all, Dennis Nafa had to go. Good night, Dennis. And QC guy was saying it's his personal preference to put them on hot. And then Jet Martin asks, is there any danger of hot installing them affecting the gimbal motors?
I wouldn't think so. As long as you're careful.
Right. I've been hot installing gimbals on drones for a couple of years now, and I've never messed a gimbal motor up doing it. But like Ethan said, the whole point is be careful. Don't ram them on there hard or squeeze them real hard. In fact, I have around somebody 3D printed a thing for me to put the gimbals on some drone or whatever. So even look into that, like getting a 3D thing to put them on securely, but not overly bend the gimbal.
Right. If you guys saw that new anamorphic lens that Moment's coming out for the DJI Mavic 2,
I did.
One of their videos actually shows them installing it, and you can see that they powered the Mavic up, then flipped it over, and then installed that thing because it won't do the gimbal calibration with that on.
With it on, yeah.
Right. Hey, can you explain to everybody what layman's terms, what an anamorphic lens is?
Oh, sure. So the little bit that I don't have any, I definitely want them, but I guess from what my understanding is, it will basically it's almost like a wide angle lens, but instead of giving you that fisheye look, it's going to do a compression in the middle. So you're going to get the wide angle look, and it's going to compress the center. So it'll look more uniform across the board. And also it's going to basically close the top down and bottom. You're going to get, instead of having to use like black bars on what we do that called the letterbox look, it'll do that automatically. And the big thing, what I think everybody looks for, is because of that compression in the middle, it's going to give you these really crazy lens flares in low light.
Right. So it's kind of we'll call it an artsy specialty lens.
Right.
It certainly wouldn't be for everyday shooting or all occasions. Again, it's like getting a gimmicky lens for your camera.
Right. I think it's going to be great for the Mavic 2 Pro, because Mavic 2 Pro doesn't really have a very wide field of view. So getting something like that to really make it really wide, I think it's going to be huge. because that's another big bonus about the Evo. It's definitely really wide.
That's interesting. So you sort of turn your Mavic into, your Mavic into a old school Phantom 1 or 2 with a GoPro on it or whatever.
Right. I hope they make. I would love to see something like that for the Anafi, but I doubt it's going to happen. Might have to make one myself.
What's the price point on that lens? Do you know for a moment?
Their Kickstarter right now, just for the lens, is like $200. But I think retail, when it comes out, they say it's going to be $300.
We're been joined by Better Off with the Drone, and he said, "Hi guys, solid info on ND filters. He had not thought of the hot install. Again, not all drones. A lot of drones, like the Mavics, have no problem installing them cold, or the Phantoms or whatever. It's just certain drones, mostly smaller drones and smaller gimbals that have some sort of issue."
Yeah, if we ever get together sometime, we'll have to compare the two and see what's going on with them, because, like I said, mine never had a problem. So,
well, Ethan, we got a key question to ask you. You going to spin up this year?
I am going to definitely try to make it out there.
Okay, well, you'll have to join Marcus and I at the ZinoNation booth.
Sure.
But no, we're looking forward if you can make it out. We're staying at which hotel, Marcus?
Oh, Spring Hill Suites.
Spring Hill Suites.
Yeah.
So Spring Hill Suites. We'll buy you Coca-Cola or something.
That'd be nice.
So.
Yeah, in fact, Bill H is going to be there. There's a lot of folks that are coming to that this year, so I'm really looking forward to that event, and to actually meet face to face with a lot of people that we talk to in chat rooms and online, and we watch their channels, etc. So that should really be fun. And Kelly Shores, I guess in the past, he puts on a pretty good shindig there. So it's going to be good.
Jet Martin said that he's talked to Anafi support several times, and he spent 30 minutes answering questions that he's found them good. And Better with the Drone said he's looking for ND filters for a Spark. I've only ever tried the Polar Pros that came out for it like 2 years ago. I don't know if there's any other options.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Yeah.
Mr. Automatic here, so what do I know?
Yeah, they were, talking about ND filters, and like once you get really used to like shooting like manual, then you'll really start to get into like the different looks of like with shutter speed, and like to really start to think about what you're going to do. That's when the ND filters really come in handy.
I mean, the best way I can explain it, Marcus, is like, if you're not using an ND filter and you're going along, you got cars and moving objects going along, the chances of those cars or objects moving at the right speed are very low, right, Ethan?
Oh yeah. I mean, well, even if they're moving, at any speed, they're not going to look right when you have a really, really high shutter speed. And most of the time when you're full auto, your shutter speed is going to be really high. I
mean, real high. Like I was out to beach shoot today. I saw shutter speeds on, up like in the 900s.
Right. Like, one thing I want to tell people, and I actually had one of my friends that is a wedding photographer. And so she's got a original Mavic Pro Platinum. And so I was showing her how to use that. She's getting pretty good at video, but she is a photographer. She's not very comfortable with video. She is a old school photographer. And she had the ND filters on the Mavic, and she's trying to take photos with it. And I told her, take the ND filters off when you're trying to shoot photos, because then you're going to want to have that high shutter speed for taking photos.
Right. Because you want to freeze the movement. Exactly.
Right. If you're trying to take a photo with the ND filter on, there's a good chance it's going to be out of focus or blurry.
I'm going to ask a trick question here. Of all the drones that you know or have used, what drone is the best purely for photos?
The Mavic 2 Pro.
I set you up with like a softball there, right?
Oh yeah. That is the first drone that I've flown that I can honestly say I feel like I'm using my Canon camera in the air.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'm an Olympus person the same way. It's almost like having my Olympus up a couple hundred feet.
Right. Even when I load I was doing a wedding about a month ago, and I was friends with the couple that got married. They're actually wedding photographers themselves. So
Okay.
I was taking some photos with the Mavic 2 Pro. So I gave her, the photos so she can do her own editing. And she was like, "I can't believe how good these look." And I was like, "I know, it's like you have your Canon up there." And she goes, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah, it is amazing. Well, we've gone almost an hour and a half here, and we'll start to wrap up here. I mean, if there's anything that you want to discuss, Ethan, that we haven't brought up yet so far.
Nope. I just wanted to put out there that future videos, I am working on basically a boat launch. I see that Billy Kyle already made one, but his was like with moving boats and like real big fancy boats. I'm just going to do one with basically I'm going to show how I launch all of my drones from my boat. And I'm going to be using go down to the Unique Breeze, the DJI Spark, the Anafi, the Mavic 2, and basically show how I go about doing it, and basically saying it is stressful. Anytime you launch or land on a boat, it's going to be stressful. But the big thing, we're trying to get this website started to upload raw video, because I think that's really important. That if you're thinking about getting a drone, being able to see what you can do with that footage and what kind of footage, the quality that comes out of the drone, it really is going to, it's going to help you make that purchasing decision.
Great. Well, when you get that website up and running again, let us know, and you can come back on the show, talk about it, promote it, maybe show some of its features so that we get people in the community using it. And also, this video sounds real interesting when you get it all done and published. If you want to come back on the show and talk about, the video in detail, we would definitely, welcome you back. So,
great.
And I'm going to do a couple show notes here, and I'm going to throw it over. You want to go first, Marcus? You want me to do the show notes first?
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Okay. We just want to promote a couple shows coming up. Bill the Drone Reviewer is back from Ohio. He just had his first grandchild, I believe, a little girl, and but he's back now, and he will be back to his regularly scheduled program at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. And I think he's having a couple good co-hosts on. I don't want to give any secrets away, but he may have a couple good co-hosts on. And then Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it'll be Drone Therapy with Bill Thomas. And I think we have a special guest coming on there too that people may know too. I don't want to reveal too much. And I'm wearing the new Drone Therapy t-shirt tonight that's just out. So if anybody wants to get this shirt, I'm sure Bill will give the information on Wednesday night on how to get this brand new Drone Therapy shirt produced and designed by the great Bill Thomas himself. So, and always a shout out to our friends Sean Matthews and the Spanish Drone Seekers who just recently celebrated their 1 year anniversary, I believe. So I'm going to try to link their channel down there, but it's Drone Seekers, and then on YouTube. I think it's as simple as that. I think that's about all I have for the night. Oh, I do have an upcoming review. I got a GoPro Hero 7 case skeleton in. It's by a company called SaneTop. Full disclosure, I was sent this by an Amazon reseller. I didn't pay for it myself. And it's a skeleton, but what makes it better than the one that comes with it has a full opening on this side here where you can charge it without having to take the shell off. And also on the bottom where it had a tiny pinhole for the mic, this has a big opening. So hopefully you'll get more sound coming through with that big opening rather than just a pinhole. And it even comes with a cap to cover the lens, and it's very secure. So the video will be out probably tomorrow, whatever. But then I'm going to test it in the field to see if it's durable and reliable as the case that came with the Hero 7. So that's all I have for the night. I'm going to throw it back to Marcus for our closing thoughts on the night. So Take it away, my friend.
Very good. Well, as for me, like I said, I mentioned I've got some family business that I have to take care of in Las Vegas for a few days, so I'll be out of the action for a little while. But I do plan on taking a couple drones with me, and maybe I get out there in the middle of nowhere in Nevada, somewhere near Area 51, and I might throw one up. Yeah. Actually, it's illegal to fly. There's a big middle part of Nevada that is definitely a no-fly zone, but there are some pretty spectacular. When I go down to Las Vegas, I literally drive 2-lane roads right through the middle of the state through Ely, Nevada. So there's some kind of interesting scenery there. So I think it's probably not a bad idea to take a drone along and throw it up and see if we can capture a little of that. Probably should take the Anafi, I suspect. Yeah, other than that, so I do have the video coming out on the camera firmware for the Zino. I've just got the raw files right now. My wife came with me, and she got some footage with the old Hero 7 too. So we'll definitely throw that in there as well. And most of all, Ethan, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I learned a lot tonight, and I look forward to having you on more.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great to be here and work on that manual settings.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, so take it away, Ethan. What else you got?
Just thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. Really been a pleasure chatting with you guys tonight. But just coming up, videos in the work. Definitely got the drone launches from a boat. I'm definitely going to be working on doing a color grading tutorial again, or it's going to be either a video or a live stream. I'm not quite sure. I think I'll put some feelers out just to see what people think of doing that. I've also want to do, once the website's up, I would really like to start taking other people's video, if people would send me video, and I was going to kind of color grade it myself and, post that up and see what people think. So.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds like really interesting. I'd love to see what you could do with some of bits of my video, give you some ideas. But I thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I knew we really machine gunned you with all these questions. So
hey, I enjoy it. I like it.
Yeah, we dig a little deeper into some of this stuff to some of the other shows. So I'm sorry about if you weren't prepared that we were really going to, quiz you on stuff, but
no, not at all. I actually love answering deep questions like that, and if anytime I can help people out, to get better footage or get better edits, to get better content, it's a pleasure.
So did you join our ZinoNation Facebook group?
I don't think I have yet. I'll be honest with you, I am not the best at Facebook. My wife takes care of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I will definitely tell her to do that for me.
If people have some questions they could ask there, but since he's not much of Facebook, but don't ask there. Go to
YouTube.
YouTube.
I have notifications set to my comments, so anytime anybody puts a comment on any of my videos, it'll come right to me, and I try to answer everybody's questions within 24 hours. So.
Alrighty, well that's great. I guess that if anybody does anything else, I'll say the good nights.
All right, good night. Have a good night, guys.
Good night. Thanks for everybody joining us in the chat, and we'll see you next week, episode 14. Good night.